So there are a lot of ways to deal with some crazy thing like this. But what we're going to actually do is exploit that pattern I just talked about, that pattern that says if you have something that's a binomial that's squared, whether it's plus or minus, it's the first thing squared, it's the last thing squared, and then it's the product of the two terms doubled, and if this was plus, it's plus, if this is minus, it's minus, but this is always plus over here. We're going to use that to solve this, because what I want to do is, this is kind of gross. So you got three things in this one, you got three things in this one. First step is to kind of rearrange the terms a little bit. Not even rearrange them, just regroup them differently, which we can totally do. And I'm going to regroup them like this. I'll show you. We have an x. I'm going to take this negative sign and distribute it. So I have an x minus 3 minus 5i. And then I have an x minus 3 plus a 5i. So the very first thing I'm going to do is take this negative sign and I'm going to distribute it to the different parentheses that are within those parentheses to get these new expressions. Now the next thing I'm going to do, this doesn't look much better, but at least these inner parentheses are gone. The second thing that's going to happen for problems like these, because we're going to this is moving towards something kind of special that's coming down the road, is to notice that I can regroup this like this. And you might be thinking like, hold on, I just got rid of the parentheses. Why are you putting more in there? Well, here's why I'm putting more in there. Because in a way, I can treat a problem like this very similar to a problem that would look like this. If I had something that was said, some big fat thing, minus 5i and plus 5i. But instead of an a there, what I have is an x minus 3. You see how I'm doing that? It's like, this problem is not as gross. I mean, we just did a bunch of problems. In fact, this kind of looks like example 1 that we just finished. Same thing here, one's plus, one's minus. We know kind of a trick for this. This is basically the same thing, but instead of a's, it's an x minus 3 and an x minus 3. And all the problems I'm going to give you in this class, that pattern is going to happen. There's a reason why that's going to happen. It's because it's pretty much the only time we really have to do something like this is when these actually match. Now, if you look back at example 1, then you know that this is going to basically end up becoming a squared plus 25. You know, it always is the case that it's the first thing squared and then, you know, minus the second thing squared. And of course, minus the second thing squared was plus 25. I'm going to use that pattern here. So instead of actually multiplying this whole thing out, I'm just going to use the fact that it's going to be this thing squared minus this thing squared. And that, when I write that out, it's going to look like this. X minus 3 squared minus, and then that thing squared, 5i squared. So this right side will become negative, and then 5 squared is 25, I squared is negative 1. So hopefully you can take this and just jump straight to positive 25. And now here's where I'm going to bust out this pattern. You can multiply it all up by hand if you want to. So, you know, as a side note, if what I'm about to do does not make you comfortable, you could take x minus 3 times x minus 3 and actually FOIL this thing out. But I'm going to use this pattern that says first thing squared in front, last thing squared in back, and then if I multiply these two things together and double it, that's in the middle, and the signs will match. And then there's like terms to combine, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. X squared minus 6x plus 34. So, you know, a quick recap. The trick here is to look at this and take a breath and know that we're going to use a lot of patterns to make it easier. Phase 1 is to take these negative signs and distribute them. And then phase 2 is to look at what you should end up with is something where these are identical. Like these are both either x minus 3 or maybe they're both x plus 1 or maybe they're both x minus 15 or whatever. These numbers will be the same as well. And then one will be plus and one will be minus. And when that happens, we're going to go ahead and use all the other tricks that we know. So we kick it off with this thing squared minus this thing squared. And then when we're squaring this thing, we use yet another pattern. It's kind of, once you hit the groove of these, they're not too bad. Good luck. Believe in yourself. Be patient with yourself. And you definitely will figure this out.